Okay guys, it's happening. Sonic Mania is finally coming out. The real Sonic 4, as opposed to the fake Sonic 4 known as Sonic 4. And it's time to have that talk. Let me preface this by saying that I'm just as excited for this as any other guy excited for Sonic Mania. But I'm going to be that guy today, because I don't see enough people being that guy. And I'm not talking about all the pseudo-intellectual commentators who persisted in the delusion that they were skeptical of a game that had Taxman and Stealthy Aim on it, and then threw that all in the bin once they got excited enough. No, there are real issues with Sonic Mania that need to be addressed. Perhaps even in vain, because everyone is speculating a sequel, a real Sonic Mania perhaps, as opposed to the fake Sonic Mania known as Sonic Mania, which is the real Sonic 4, as opposed to the fake Sonic 4 called Sonic. Anyway, this is all just criticism with the hopes of seeing improvement in the apparent incrementally real Sonic Manias. And I'm not complaining just to complain here. I mean, it's not like I'm some sort of Sonic fan, but I do have two major criticisms, so buckle in and don't get too upset at me. So if there's anything we've learned from Sega's last attempt to recapture the classics, is that the physics, in the eyes of the masses that is, are the foundation of the classic formula. And it's not enough that the physics are competently programmed together, they have to feel like classic physics. That's a big reason why we're complaining about 2D Sonic the Advanced series is carefully and conveniently omitted. So that's kind of understandable, right? The physics can't change, and if it does, it must change in ways that complements the framework. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with not fixing what isn't broken, but now is the best time to pose the question, especially since everyone's talking about a Mania sequel. Will the classic formula grow stale? Mega Man really is the best example. Capcom were masters of not touching the framework, to the point that they only decided to shake things up 2, arguably 3 games after it started growing stale. You can only throw on so many bells and whistles before people start getting tired of riding the same bike. How far will new stages, enemies, and bosses carry us before it all starts to feel the same? Will the nostalgia fade away around the next real Sonic Mania? Even now, an argument can be made that Sonic Mania doesn't bring enough new things to shake up the formula. Hell, Green Hill's the first fucking stage. So what's stopping me from playing 3/4 into Sonic 1 and just turning the game off? Will the nuances be enough, is my point. Mileage may vary, of course, but it's a question that will have to be asked. Who's excited about the drop dash? Surely everyone who's downloaded the ROM hack that had the drop dash within weeks of the announcement. The whole point I'm trying to make here is that the core gameplay isn't anything new, and when the scales fall from it being a wonderful nostalgia love letter, it's ultimately just more of the same. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, don't get me wrong, because that's all Retro Periods 1 is, more of the same. But how much do you want the same food dish before you start getting tired of it? Really, this is all inevitable, and if Mania is indeed getting sequels, it can't be helped. And specifically in Mania's case, this can be very easily forgiven and overlooked even outside the context of a nostalgia trip, were it not for one little thing. Love it or hate it, Sonic 4 has its place in history. The fake one, that is. This one. If you like it, it's another gem for the collection. If you hate it, it's a damn good guide on how not to do it. The guide I think Sega really fucking took to heart. So, Sonic 4 taught us 5 key things. First is the physics. Dimps were in way over their heads here, and Sega by extension. Their biggest flop was not understanding just how much the classic formula meant to these man-children. So physics is like their oxygen. If it's not pure, their lungs hurt and they turn red and purple and, whatever. So, thank God for the real Sonic 4, right? The next lesson was the graphics. And to be fair, a lot of people weren't that harsh on Sonic 4's, that is the fake Sonic 4's graphics. There was a plasticky, pre-rendered vibe to it that really didn't look so good though. They worked with it, and beyond Splash Hill is actually pretty tolerable. Also, let's not forget Episode 2, which actually had significant improvements in that field and ultimately had very good graphical work. But there was still a very, very, very vocal minority who wanted the 16-bit sprites. And you know what? That's fair and reasonable. I'm not going to talk too much shit on this one because it wouldn't have been hard and you can't really blame Dimps for not being ready. New game needs new assets, but they took a direction that had little appeal and the animations weren't really all that good either. You know, wrong place, wrong time. Okay. Lesson 3 was sound design. I didn't mind fake Sonic 4's music personally, but my opinions of validity can be put up for review because I also unironically like the soundtrack from Mega Man 2 for the Game Boy. Yeah. But regardless, the instrumentation of fake Sonic 4's music was heavily up for criticism. I personally find the composition to be done quite well, and it would have sounded great with better samples, especially Episode 2. Nonetheless, the samples used in fake Sonic 4 weren't A+. As someone who liked the music, even I can admit that. If you want to listen to great composition music using Genesis sound samples, listen to DJ Sonic King. Do it now. Our penultimate lesson is the level design, which in full consideration of fake Sonic 4 wasn't that bad at all, but in all consideration was definitely a step down from the classics. A bold step forward this level design was not, competent though it was. It was spiced up a bit in Episode 2, but alas, it still wasn't enough. This can be accredited to Dimps not knowing the kind of level design people wanted. Can we blame them for that? Yeah, we probably can. But how much can you expect from a studio that was not the STI, that is the Sega Technical Institute, doing work with not enough loyalty to the source material? Our last lesson is the big one, and the core reason behind my criticisms of the real Sonic 4. This whole unnecessary breakdown was to preface this point. There was another big criticism aimed at fake Sonic 4, and it was talked about as much as the physics. I didn't necessarily agree with this one, but it's worth noting on the grounds of the fan reaction to it. The logic is as follows. If this is the next step forward, if this is the sequel to the magnum opus known as Sonic 3 and Knuckles, then it should show significant steps forward from those games while maintaining the spirit and charm of the older titles. Therefore, there should not exist rehashed stages. So my argument back then, and still today, was that we shouldn't pretend that the classics didn't also rehash old stages. Hell, every game with a stage that ended in Hill is a good example. What about Hydro City and Labyrinth Zone? What about the Death Eggs? It happens in visual namesake homages. They fucking happen. And the stages can still acquire their own charm and sense of identity and personality. I think the complaint about this one was completely illegitimate and blown way out of proportion. Oh, boo boo, the rehashes. A stage with Hill in the name was a rehash. Oh wow, Casino stage with original ideas. Those don't count. Oh, now this is obviously a ripoff of Labyrinth Zone, even though only the third act has water in it. Totally not Metropolis Zone. Yawn. I don't get quite how Sega wanted to pay homage to these older stages and get completely burned by the community. It was a gesture of passion whose only crime was, I guess, not being passionate enough. And now that Sonic Mania literally brings back old fucking stages, no one seems to mind. And now we're here. I didn't mind paying graphical homage to Green Hill, but I completely fucking mind bringing Green Hill back. And there's a bit of a paradox going on here. Aside from being a step down from rehashing stages, no one in the fucking world needed to be reminded of Green Hill, except maybe Game Scoop.
The Green Hill Zone from Sonic 2, you know?
This didn't need to happen to 2D Sonic just as we've imagined it. The bottom line here is that if we're going to pretend that it's 1997 and we got a proper sequel to S3 and K released on the Saturn, that fantasy alternate universe game would not have had Green Hill. It wouldn't have had Flying Battery, Chemical Plant, Stardust Speedway, possibly Lava Reef or Hydro City, and certainly not the fucking Blue Spheres. Real shit here. Coming up to release, I was considering not even making this video. First because I don't expect this to break 100 views, and also because I don't think a lot of people excited for the real Sonic 4 was ready to hear these things. After seeing the bonus stages, I fucking had to. This is not okay. If you love blue spheres, that's fine, man. More power to you. There are literally thousands of them by locking on Sonic 1 and Sonic & Knuckles, and I doubt you're that much of a lifeless nerd to literally play them all, much less play them to the point that you wanted new blue sphere stages. I wanted a new bonus stage. I spent months wondering what new bonus stage we were getting, but this is honestly a spit in the face that everyone else seems to love. And that's really the sad part about all this, is that I'm probably the only guy upset about this. Everyone seems to acknowledge that a blatant return of the old stages is demonstrably less preferable than new stages to replace them, but ultimately no one minds, for two reasons. First, because only half of the first act is a blatant ripoff, because gosh, that really is an argument in his favor. That really makes me feel better, and that act 2 is all new level design and gimmies. Well, the aforementioned paradox here is that if you're going to go out of your way to distance yourself from the classic stage's flow and mechanics, why even bring back those old stages in the first place? The second paper-thin, flimsy excuse is that Sonic Mania, the real Sonic 4, the love letter to every Sonic fan over the age of 25, the Max Revision's historical Sega Saturn title, is just a test. It's a wade in the water before we dive into the milking of the classic series far beyond any vitamin D deficiency. It's already under unanimous assumption that there will be sequels and that they will be the real Sonic Mania, so to speak. Come on, son. Doesn't it show a lack of confidence? Maybe so, since with Sonic Forces, I know that Sega is scared stiff and is playing it as safe as they possibly can. It's incredible, since Sega claimed that the classic homages were only in episode 1 of fake Sonic 4, and they took that feedback and was doing newer themed stages in the subsequent episodes. And they thought they were playing it safe then by releasing fake Sonic 4 in episodic installments. I would have respected Sega more if they took the Sonic 4 out and covered Green Hill in a weak, thin film just to make it slightly different, like Turquoise Hill and Biomaterial Plant, and Flying Airship, and Intergalactic Interstate Highway. Fuck, I don't care. Something. Especially since the devs had the idea to differentiate them in the second acts. I would have felt more nostalgia exploring a new stage than seeing an old one literally return. So it fails on the grounds of nostalgia bait too. And we did not need blue spheres coming back. Regardless, I have no doubt that this game will be very enjoyable, satisfying, and even cathartic for many. And it will hit right in nostalgia in most of the right ways. But I feel several opportunities were squandered, either from lack of confidence, executive direction, or to meet time constraints. To really capture that retro feel, to enable us to completely lose ourselves in our childhood and pretend with all cringeworthy nerddom that it's still the 90s and we're sitting down with our new Sega Saturn playing the latest hot Sonic game before 3D gameplay allegedly poisons the well. So my final summary is going to include a reassertion that I'm not against Sonic Mania. I grew up with Genesis era Sonic 2 for fuck's sake, and I really am crazy excited for this game, because it is a game for people like me, and it shows. I'm just a little bit worried how hard the spell will break because I'm less experiencing a new game and more revisiting old games with a twist, making it feel like a remastered compilation as opposed to the bold, exciting step forward this game was probably intended to be. But who the fuck am I kidding? I pre-ordered the CD and I'll be the first to declare in the public space that I'm totally putting that fake card in my real fucking Genesis just for the fucking novelty. And as a Sonic fan, I am obviously looking forward to this game. But for me, the attempted nostalgia trip took away a lot of the charm, and ironically some of the nostalgia. Ultimately, we'll see if any of my opinions on this change once I get my hands on the game. I hope it does, and I might make a review for the game for the less than 100 people who care.
I found you, Faker!
Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh? You're not even good enough to be my
I'll make you eat those words!